Good day, everybody. It is a pleasure for us to be on here with Dystopia Unmasked with Alexander Carberry, whom I have the privilege of quizzing every week on, in particular for the past four sessions, the world systems analysis approach that he's offering. And every single conversation, I feel that there is a facet that is elucidated to make it easier to impart and comprehend this methodology and this approach that Alex, you've been developing. At least I think I caught the tail end of it since the urgency of what was happening in Gaza made you kind of go public with your reflections, ruminations, and observations.
Yeah.
And so here we are, episode 5 of the grammar of the world system, where, to sum it up, we've looked at climate, we've looked at geology, we've looked at geography as, and I like this very much, upstream. Is that upstream then?
Yeah.
Upstream determinants of the survival coordination options that humans have put in place, out of which emerge things like governance models, global governance aspirations, international, interstate operations. Those we talk little about, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Those we talk about too much, NATO. Those we have too much hope in. I'm thinking of Mercosur. I'm thinking of BRICS. All of these organizations that stand neck to neck with states, the Westphalian Order, the United States in America. I remember buying a book that made a distinction between the Westphalian Order and the post-Westphalian Order, claiming at the heart of the book that this was the age and the era of the post-Westphalian Order, and that the U.S. was a reminiscent Westphalian actor stuck to the ways of statehood, whereas the world had moved on to a more regionally integrated EU-like, ASEAN-like sort of dispensation. But this was all in the 2006 to 2012 era.
Yeah. But you can see, yeah. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. And salams and so on. Yes. I will come answer that, but I really have to apologize to people for my absence last week. I really, thank you.
Mm.
And thank you, Salim. And yes, Gaza, for me, Gaza changed everything. Gaza changed everything. And those ideas about world government, etc., and coalitions of states, etc. I always looked at, in Guyana we say with a pinch of salt,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes we would say what we say. You're not like the salt, you're like the pot spoon, because the pot spoon is always, the salt goes in, but the pot spoon always has to be in the pot while it's cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is that allies tend to spy on each other.
Allies tend to spy on each other. Mm-hmm.
And because state formations, like people, are zones of anxiety, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because all of them, they have interests. Their interests will never completely align. They have differential resources, different military strengths,
Mm-hmm.
Different capacities. If somebody can't match your mass, they don't have the numbers, so they might invest in special forces and special operations. And as they do that, naturally to strengthen themselves, the others in the alliance are looking at them and going, well, what happens if that turns against me?
Yes.
Right? And so I've always looked at that kind of idealism I've always kind of looked at those positions as a kind of idealism that cannot stand the friction of reality. Yeah.
And cannot stand the friction of reality. And the perspective that you have espoused and that you are actually sharing with us
Mm.
is that of the world systems approach. You have a manual for it, and I have to ask, is there going to be available to the public in some form or way that technical compendium? I feel privileged to have access to it. It allows me to understand the discipline with
Mm.
which you're looking at global affairs from
Mhm.
a very upstream, a very panoramic perspective. Is the audience going to be connected to that material in some
Well,
way, form?
I'm not sure, because when I was doing that, when I started developing that, I I was developing it, one, to clarify what I was thinking,
Okay.
okay, and two, because I didn't feel it was fair for me to be digging into this, or to be driving up the road that I was,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't even have a roadmap. I didn't think it was fair. So, but when I started doing it, I then realized why the hell I'm so accurate.
You see, and this is an important point. The instruments of a social scientist or s- of a mind technically concerned with the rigorous analysis, the dependable analysis of, let's say, human affairs in the
Hmm.
context of the lithosphere and the atmosphere and the hydrosphere, and is something that I feel we don't talk about enough. You see, when you said this just now, this is something that many dare not say, but this is the game that we entered to play when we said, let us have a look at geopolitics. Why are you doing it? You're doing it to be capable of saying dependable things.
Precisely.
And so this is where the jokes stop and it becomes very serious. You're staking your reputation, you're staking your expertise on the quality of the instruments you develop.
And in my case, I feel that I am staking people's lives,
Mm,
right? In fact, I know I'm staking people's lives,
mhm.
right? Because sometimes you say something and somebody will listen and they will act on it, right? It may be
Oh
a
yeah.
single person, maybe a nation. Okay, so you have to come to it with a peculiar kind of integrity, because you're dealing with people's lives.
And
Yeah.
the degree of seriousness is, I mean, the proof of the pudding is in its eating. And time again in the 3 years that we've been cooperating, it's revealed itself as quite poignant what you have to say. And to this day, I haven't picked up in many places, and that's being generous in how I'm putting it, the genesis of why it escalated so brutally and so rapidly between
Hmm.
Israel and Hamas.
Hmm.
The genesis that you laid out, when I saw you do that in the video, talking about the ownership of the Leviathan fields,
Hmm.
access to the Leviathan fields, and the hubris
Hmm.
with which the Western side, Israel and the US, demanded uh, to dis disempower disempower the legally rightful owners of the Leviathan fields. That 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 analysis is entirely missing in the larger mainstream discourse.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so people don't understand that there is a political economy to this that could have been predicted, that was predicted by some. The end of which we're in now, the tragedy of which we're in now, was predicted as a zero sum game that it has become.
Hmm.
and that is being denied. But anyway, it's not about Gaza
Okay.
specifically today.
Okay. Well. I because it's number 5 of the world
Hmm.
system. I really wanted to really talk about what I wanted to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I'm talking about, what I'm want to talk about is about the nature of the internet infrastructure, the data infrastructure that holds our world together. Yeah. Yeah. And so, and why am I talking about that now? Because we still look at the internet as a almost a universal and an international, quite neutral
Hmm.
piece of infrastructure. And one of the articles that I did, I was showing people how the internet has descended from the, hold on,
DACA.
the internet descended from DARPA. Yeah. All right. This is the paper that is
Hold
the
on distributed communications, Introduction to Distributed Communications
yeah
Networks by Paul
Bar,
Baran. It's Baran, it is, right?
Baran. Yeah. And
Hmm.
this is the paper that really by the way, on behalf of the RAND Corporation, that was the paper that kind of specked out what would become the internet.
Hmm.
Okay. And so I was really showing people that its origin was in a military usage, and it was a technology of command and control. And so that is never going to leave the political imagination of the internet. And so what we're seeing right now is that the internet is splitting into two, or has already split into two, right? When I was talking about the splinternet in the beginning,
Hmm.
it has split into two. Um, and one of the things the Chinese are trying to do is to prevent the complete bifurcation of the technology stacks of the world, because the Americans and the Europeans recognize that they cannot compete on the same ground. And so they are trying to diverge with their own technology stacks, which means that you're tied into them and they can decide where the equipment, right, or that the equipment that is sold within that zone can be manufactured. Okay. So they're trying to really re-engineer the entire thing so
Can
that
I ask
they
you
can
for
dominate.
something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the sessions prior, you went to the the geological constraints in space that had an impact on the options of, say, the British Empire in laying the telecom cables in and around Hormuz and its former colonies in the region. Um, the internet, the splinternet that we're looking at, the separation of access for Westerners into the Chinese network.
Mm-hmm.
That is at the consumer level, but I'm quite sure there are other levels and layers of this. And the question is, how did, how did, for example, how does China relate? I've never asked myself this, but how does China relate to the cable situation in Bab al Mandab around that corner?
Okay. All right. So that's exactly where I'm going.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay. Because basically, what you have to understand is that in the Second World War,
Mm-hmm.
when the Nazis, okay, so Weimar Republic, I have to go back. After the First World War, the, you know, um, Germany could not really have an air force. They could not have, they had to constrain their navies. They had to constrain the amount of troops they had. And so they pursued something called dual use technology.
Mm-hmm.
So that the technology that was being used for civilian development could be very easily transferred into to military, right?
Yes.
Not only that, but at the same time, they couldn't have an air force, but they were training what would become the air force with the Russians, Soviets at the time. Okay, so
This is the first time I'm hearing this. This is the first time I'm hearing this. I have
when
the
I when
story.
I when I when I learned that, I was actually quite shocked.
It is. You have to sort of. It makes sense if you know how politics operate. You understand that someone. It is the
But it
German
still surprises you.
normalization.
It still surprises you. I mean, I'm still constantly surprised, but
Hmm.
um, that's how it is. I've become comfortable with being surprised. In fact, I enjoy it now. Um,
I have an anecdote for that. You
mm,
know what are the planes called that don't have an engine? They're pulled off the soil and once they're in the air,
gliders.
the gliders. I have it from. I remember picking up that the Germans used because once the plane is in the air, you can train the pilot on how to navigate the plane. And I have it that because it didn't have an engine, it was a loophole in the interdictions to do military research. So they used gliders to train their pilots. I didn't know about the Soviet Union connection.
Yeah, no, they actually got real experience,
Mm.
Soviets, and
Mm.
and technology exchange in exchange for that.
Well, it connects with the pact that Hitler had with Stalin. It
Mm.
sort of so, but you're in Weimar Republic.
And that's what I'm saying from the Weimar Republic, because I'm always,
That's
but that's
1918
part
to
of the reason.
33.
That's part of the reason why I often the continuity of policy
Mm-hmm.
between regimes in countries tells you that often there are real deep structural matters that decide what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you find
Mm.
the the von Hindenburg and so on, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The continuity of German military thinking
Yes.
was consistent. I mean, it was not the Nazis who just suddenly came up with the well, the 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 way that they did the Blitzkrieg.
Oh,
Uh,
the Blitzkrieg. Yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was that kind of basically what the Germans did in place of being able to do it is they really dug in to the theory of war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So that's another conversation. I want
And
to I
and
want to
and
get to the internet.
And speaking of continuities, we are in the middle of witnessing permanent, regular, recurrent blitzkrieg, and people just don't name it that. The shock and awe, I mean, the shock and awe doctrine of the U.S. military in that we've seen in Iraq.
Yeah.
We before that we saw it in Afghanistan. We uh,
Well,
we've seen it in Iraq.
no, that going into the roots of particularly American military doctrine. I
Mm.
don't want to go there right now because it's gonna that's is actually to understand the nature of American military doctrine is, I think, important.
Oh, we have to do this one day. We
Yeah, but
have to do
not
this.
we can't do that now. We're
No, okay,
finishing the
yeah.
world system.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
okay, so basically, I'm saying that one of the anxieties of nations has been the security of their data. Because what has become very clear is that you're using infrastructure that is not neutral and which observes your usage.
Hmm.
Okay, so what has happened is that the development of basically sovereign infrastructure, because the cables that we're talking about that make the internet work, and the internet works with cables, not mainly satellite, because satellite is slower than the cable, right? And the problem, so you get a latency problem. So latency is the delay between the sending of the message and its arriving.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So with satellite, you have a number of problems. One of them is the latency problem.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is atmospheric conditions interrupting the transmission. And with cables, you don't have any of those problems. It's fiber optic cable under the ground with a sheath, right? Done. So those cables, where you see the main sea routes, that's where the cables are running, right? Because you have to. That's where you get the draft, right? That's where you get the depth. So that's where the ships that are going to lay the cables will pass. Okay. And so the Suez is a major, most of those cables have to go up the Red Sea, and
Yes.
then through the not necessarily through the canal, but often on land as a land bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Happens. So, oh yeah. So this is how it works. So, in terms of now thinking about what you call sovereign matters,
Mm-hmm.
and digital infrastructure became a major point of anxiety with the U.S. war on terror,
Mm-hmm.
because it was realized that they were monitoring internet behavior. That's part of the reason why the Chinese have created um, uh, uh, an internet ecosystem that does not allow, right? You can't have particular kinds of technology in there, etc. It is walled off.
I just connected two dots. I remember picking up years ago in a critical tone from Western analysts that the Chinese are oppressing their population by withholding from them access to this world of liberty, freedom, and also frivolity that is the internet. That's how it was presented to us.
Yes.
But you would have to be some kind of, what's a good word to use here? To not understand the motivation of the Chinese.
I would say that I think the word you're looking for is jackass.
The dishonesty on one hand, and then
No,
on the other
it's
hand,
not dishonesty. It's jackassicity.
because if you know, because the public at large, I didn't know for the longest of time of my usage of the internet that I was using an outcome of a military operation that still is rooted in
Yeah.
DARPA
But
and ARPANET to some extent in some ways.
yeah. Well.
So to blame the Chinese,
Unfortunately for me, I knew.
you see, the literacy, the literacy work, the technology literacy work being done in the West omits this with elegance. It omits the military purpose, geostrategic and
Well,
surveillance
that's why I
purpose.
said that that European political thinking is essentially theological, right? That's why I always say that. Okay, it is essentially theological. It it tells you what you can believe if you are to be part of the saved, and if you're and not enter into the ground of the damned. So even this kind of conversation, right, is going to be seen as he's a China lover or something like that. I don't have time. You know, jackasses must bray, so they have to bray. I don't have time with that. Okay. Um.
Okay.
So so um. So what I'm saying here is that, and the thing about it is that the we are trying to catch up with the Chinese internet ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we are at least a decade behind the Chinese ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
and cannot equal some of the things that is being done in the Chinese ecosystem because of our peculiar kind of free market ideas that have stopped us from having. Okay, so like in the Chinese with WeChat, okay, I can on WeChat I can book a taxi, buy my food, go to a restaurant. The restaurant will draw down my details to understand what my needs are,
Mm-hmm.
right? All without leaving a single app. It's a super app. Play games in the app. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Billy Bumbo. Jackassicity is one of those words that 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 I coined. Okay. Yes. Yes, it is. I think it is etymologically sound under these circumstances. But the point about it. Okay, so the point here is that the Chinese, we are the one trying to catch up with the Chinese. When Red Note came out, people were really shocked,
Mm-hmm.
right? TikTok is a spin-off of the Chinese
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem. Chinese ecosystem far ahead of TikTok, right? So anyway, so what happened? People began to realize that a sovereign, secure internet ecosystem is absolutely necessary to the it to healthy development, which centers your needs. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I have it here from a good source, tongue in cheek. It says, comparing the Chinese internet to DARPA is a fundamental comparison between a massive top-down national digital sovereign system, the Chinese one, and a foundational R&D, research and development blueprint that created the global internet. China's infrastructure prioritizes absolute state control and domestic digital sovereignty, whereas DARPA designed an open, decentralized network for military and
Okay,
academic
okay.
resilience.
I'm sorry. I don't have any time for to argue against bad theology. I just say to you is go on. Here is the paper. Go read the flipping paper. Yeah, try there. You'll see that that paper it defines how mobile networks would work, etc., etc., etc. It defines it all, and it 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 decentralizes it as a security feature. So I don't have time. I don't have time to waste. All right.
Which is almost boring because the decentralization trick was the essential response the US had to the Cold War threats posed by the Soviet Union. We have to decentralize everything, denodify or fragment the nodes.
Yeah. Um. Okay. So I want to because I want to now get into the
Hmm.
machinery.
Hmm.
So what you have? So place like Iran, they have their own internet ecosystem. Okay.
Hmm.
And quite developed, right? A place like Russia has their own internal ecosystem. The places that have just joined the American ecosystem, they don't have Googles, they don't have Facebook, Metas, right? Basically, they cannot compete, and so they end up acting as appendages of that, so that um, you're seeing deep cultural penetration
Hmm.
by Americanism within these economies, and that is what they are. That is what they are. But remember that the internet is not only what we are dealing with here. I mean, it is also what manages markets. or the infrastructure upon which markets are managed, and it's the infrastructure that militaries must use, and it's an infrastructure that you deal with with distance critical matters, right? So you've got large distances, and you have to deal with those matters. So you can run robots, you could do this, you could do that upon that infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are using of the internet is not the largest use case of the internet.
Absolutely fascinating. The internet then is fragmenting into four competing sovereign ecosystems rather than a single World Wide Web. Geography and state control define the digital networks we use.
Mhm.
This is from FinTech Pulse, and I feel like they're echoing what you're saying. They make a distinction. How do you see it? A market driven commercial ecosystem in the West, a digital sovereignty ecosystem of state domination in China. Uh, sorry. That's my fault. A digital sovereignty ecosystem championed heavily by the European Union, a digital authoritarianism based on sovereign internet, which is the Chinese system, and a techno-nationalist sovereign framework. Techno-nationalist sovereign framework, digital authoritarianism, digital
All right.
sovereignty, and
Okay. So
market-driven.
I those categories I'm not going to actually engage with in the way that they have. I don't think it's useful. Basically, there is the Western internet, and the Europeans themselves are now trying to redefine the Western internet so that they can have some influence over it,
Mm-hmm.
because it became a completely American affair, right? You're using we're all using Google. Right? So if you look at the main technologies, okay, um, Tim Berners-Lee is from where? He's British,
I think so.
right? No,
See.
I don't think I know. He's British,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay. Much of the much of that kind of technology of usage is European,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there are no large apps, etc., or infrastructure builders. Google and Meta are putting down their own cables.
Yes.
Okay, so none of in Europe, nothing like that. So what Europe is now trying to do is to re-engineer the kind of internet it has, right?
Mm-hmm.
To remove itself out of the domination by the 3,000 pound gorilla, right, which is the United States.
Mm.
And so Europe is trying to be a 1,000 pound gorilla.
Yes.
And and so when they're talking of so now they're trying to do what the Chinese have done, right? But so I can't engage with that kind of nonsense. Now what's happening here is huh?
No, no, I'm all ears.
Okay, so what's happening here is that the Americans stopped Google from building a trans-Pacific pipe cable that would have terminated at Hong Kong
Mm-hmm.
for security reasons. Okay, so everybody is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody. So that kind of way of looking at it, it kind of is just trying to manufacture the same kind of, we are the same, they are the damned. I don't have time with that. Okay, so now what's happening with now we're talking about the Northern Sea Route, or the NSR. The Russians are are building, not talking about building, something they call the Polar Express, which is an internet connection from Vladivostok all the way to Murmansk, right, as a basic pipe that a basic low latency pipe, right? The distance is shorter. It means that all of that infrastructure is within their sovereign territory, and they can then, for the countries in the East China Sea, that will be their shortest route to Europe. Not only that, but they are, because it's now also in the Arctic, they're also building data centers in the Arctic. Norway, in Norway, they are building data centers in the Arctic also, and that is also one of the reasons for Greenland. Okay, and they're trying to build a pipe which is shorter, which goes across the Arctic to end up in Canada.
I'm assuming they're using that region because of cooling attributes of.
Precisely. So then a lot of the energy intensive use of data centers is in cooling.
From the point of view of ecological balance, from the point of view of.
Look, if our civilization was interested in ecological balance, we would not be using petroleum. Right? Let's be honest. Right? Ecological balance is a performance. Our civilization is interested in power.
Alex, is this where we are? Is this where we are as a species? That the two of us, as surely the people in the audience and people like us, are in the vast minority. That we look at our civilization cutting off the branch we sit on, and we are fully aware of that. But there's not a single measure undertaken to
We are a
interdict that.
civilization descended from the largest, most brutal slave economy that has ever been on the face of the earth. Okay, and we have never compensated we didn't compensate the slaves. We compensated the slave owners. Okay, that tells you everything you need to know about the dynamics of the system. The fact that I am descended from that, it does not matter, right? And reparations were paid to slave owners to stop that. Okay, it was dealt with. It was not dealt with as a moral issue. It was dealt with as a property issue. Okay, that tells you everything you need to know about the way that our civilization solves problems, regardless of its theological. It's we are the same. We are the best thing since whatever, right? They have to that. Okay, so I don't want to. I want to talk about the split internet. So that's one of the projects that's occurring now. What has happened in the development of the internet is that the North Atlantic is the zone of the thickest um, highways of internet traffic.
What do you mean by thickest?
So you're talking about how many petabytes can be transferred across the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's the size of the pipes, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many
Mm-hmm.
how many strands do you have in the cable? Right. So you're shooting light down the cable. Okay. So the North Atlantic is the place where it has the thickest concentration of that. And so what traditionally happened is that data would have to come to Europe and the United States and then be redistributed elsewhere. So that internet traffic that would go from Africa to Latin America or to South America would go up to Portugal, sometimes jump across, sometimes up to London, then they jump across, then they have to go down. So what is happening is that they're now beginning to build like the Africa to South America connection pipes, and the place that, again, geology, right? There's an island off the coast of Brazil that happens to be the very natural landing point for that. That is a place that the UK would have in the past. I'm not sure if they still have it. They had submarine basing rights. Island starts with F. Can't remember the name. Right. So you get so in the same places that you have the very deep ports are the places that it is possible to lay um, data cables from. Okay. So the places you're talking about, the ports in Angola, there's Cameroon, to some extent Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and where else? One other one. I can't remember the other one. Anyway, so they end up you end up with another choke point off the coast of Brazil. Okay, which then does the redistribution. On the other side, from the Atlantic, from the Pacific side, you have the connections between Australia and South America. Okay. Other than that, the pipes just come down the continent from the United States. Okay, and trying to oppose and discipline the Chinese penetration of that zone. Then you have the Indian Ocean, often via India to Africa as the connection point. So you get the Chinese laying pipes, but you get a lot of Indian data connection. So now what's happening is that, so what I'm saying is that the connection architecture is changing, and as that connection architecture is changing, then the surveillance that was possible from, when you read this article or this paper, the surveillance that was possible under a unified internet is no longer the case. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
It's no longer the case, you say. So what you are saying is, in the world that we live in today, where the claim is that the overall total value of data circulating the internet is about 20 trillion US dollars. That's what they estimate. They say that it could be more because not all data is accounted for, but the general estimate is 18 to 20 trillion dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that this is a tension, just like the geological space is a domain of tension management. The internet has become a splinter net where there's tension about who controls how much of these $20 trillion.
What okay, so the Europeans and the Americans will tend to value everything by the dollar amounts.
Mm.
You're not now, okay. Which brings me to another very interesting way of looking at it. What you see when Europeans and the United States brings internet infrastructure in,
Mm-hmm.
is they want to almost parachute something in and extract from one node, right? So the in zones where you have very thin infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
they don't build the infrastructure out. They come in and extract from the zone.
Mm.
The what we're seeing in the like what's his face? Musk's Skynet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic, right? You
Mm-hmm.
get a dish, you're fine. Now, what the Chinese and the Russians, because especially of their circumstances, right? Because they, as I was saying, they're in high coordination threshold conditions. The Russian ones more than the Chinese ones. So what happens is that they understand that you have to build infrastructure that allows people to access. So when they come in, they will build roads, build what do you call it, power stations,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
right? Build roads, build power stations, and help you to build infrastructure, recognizing that when you connect these places digitally and otherwise, the economy will begin to make what it makes. So it's almost like they invest in the infrastructure as a loss leader. So when the West says that the Chinese are investing, it is debt. It is, we call it that these are debt traps. You find that the Chinese are very willing to forgive the debt. Why? Because they're going to make the money on the economy, on the thickness. But once the infrastructure thickens, they intend to make their money on what emerges.
Yes. So how is this is basically looking at the internet as a circulatory flow.
So the internet, so the world system. So the internet is a connection
Mm-hmm.
to the circulatory system of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
In particular, the economic and the data one. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying here is that in order to really benefit from that, you have to thicken your infrastructure. And Western and aligning yourself with Western actors has historically not thickened the infrastructure in the way that allows you to benefit from that connection.
Mm.
Right? So what is happening is that eh, essentially you're not offering a choice, right? It's like team up with us and be perpetually poor, or team up with them and you thicken your infrastructure and you have possibilities. And Europe and the United States need to stop this kind of always talking about democracy and autocracy and all, and recognize that in places like Africa and Latin America, people need thick infrastructure. If you're not willing to build that infrastructure and sometimes lose money on it, then the Chinese and the Russians are going to beat you, right? And it because you're not competing. You're not in a
Oh.
because in that case you're not in a and what is actually frustrating to sometimes read are the kinds of views that I'm going strategically. Strategically, this is so asinine that you deserve to lose it.
Are you alluding to a man who recently visited Kenya?
I don't. I mean, to do this kind of thing, I don't really look at that thing. I don't just reading papers, and I don't do very much social media and so
And current affairs.
on.
No, I was thinking about Macron because
Oh God, that idiot! Oh God, sorry.
in his
I
speeches.
end up calling everybody an idiot. Sorry, please
No,
forgive me.
but I mean sometimes it is much in order. Um, but maybe something else would be more in order for
But,
Macron in
okay,
Africa.
so
He's
tell me about
pivoting.
Macron. What happened?
He's pivoted. France has pivoted now to Kenya. Kenya has given France some agreements, some accords that allow France to secure its military presence on the continent. So the Francophone Africans who know France have decided to give France the boot. And the Anglophones, Kenya, of all places, I wonder what happened to the inheritance of the Mau Mau.
Okay, so let's not look at it like that. Let's look at it like this. Kenya is the main artery
Mm,
for extraction
mm,
from the Great Lakes system.
there you go. Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Kenya and Tanzania are the two arteries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you to get there you have to go via Rwanda or Uganda. Yeah, you got
Is,
then, or you
is
can go
there a
via Lake
railway
Kivu.
system?
You can go Lake Kivu to that railway system that
Mm-hmm.
across Tanzania. There's a
Yes, yes,
small one
yes, yes,
going out
yes.
from to Uganda, Kenya. Yeah. So that is the artery. So basically, by doing that, they are positioning themselves at the ports. They're moving from from the internal involvement because they're being basically kicked out
Mm-hmm.
to external involvement. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kenyan the Kenyan elite have basically sold out. I mean, that is the situation. And that happened a long time ago. Okay, so the point here is, sorry, let me stop and let you.
No. I mean, we are talking. I'm trying to see from the perspective of some of the conceptual uh, tools, from the perspective of some of the conceptual tools in the world systems methodologies, um, what it means to look at the internet as infrastructure and as flow of data in the world that we inhabit now and in the world that is being constructed. You've pointed out that the internet as as um as an instrument is now no longer unified. That has not been the case for a while now because it has splintered into different political zones of increasing autonomy from the Western DARPA initiated concept.
And that splitting was initiated by the West.
Can you
The,
specify that again?
because the underlying technical, even though China was separate, the underlying technical stacks that built their internet were Western.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when the Chinese became able to manufacture their own through places like two companies like Hawaii, okay, the Americans pushed back very hard and even insisted that that like the Europeans, that their allies had to remove Chinese tech their their from their infrastructure because they said it was a security risk.
Mm.
Right. Part of the problem was that now part of what the Chinese recognized is that um, building their infrastructure on American based tech was also a security risk.
You know, as we talk about this, I just had a blast from the past. Do you remember that when we used to watch VHS cassettes, that there were different systems depending on where you were on this
Listen, man.
planet?
I as I said to you before, I'm 35 years old. If you're talking about history, then please refer me to some historical text or something. But don't ask me about VHS and Betamax and all of that.
There used to be a time when if you traveled from an Anglophone country to a French country, you had a problem because the French were using a cable system that was called
Oh.
SECAM, and the Germans or British were using PAL.
Mm-hmm.
And so you couldn't, consume freely if you didn't have the right uh,
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Yes.
And are we in a similar situation now, sort of a new version of,
Well,
at another layer of the technology, of course?
well, that's what we are. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the tech stacks have split, and what the Chinese are trying to do is to keep the tech stacks from splitting.
Mm,
Right. Um. That's what they have been because it limits their access to markets.
mm. Who is setting up constraints? Who dominates constraints in the
Yes,
in the,
the actor that has been enforcing constraints is the United States. That is not a point of argument.
mm,
Right?
mm.
It's not even a point of discussion. It's very clear. They've done so openly.
Where would you say can we see the convergence points? The convergence points that will matter in the near future.
I think we're really looking at we have to look at because the energy in the system is divergent at present.
Okay.
So I think we're moving from convergence to divergence. So we need to look at the trajectories of the divergence to understand where the convergences will come.
Who will benefit from this most? And who will be the loser? And I'd like to throw in a term that we haven't touched on
Um,
today.
I that's a hard question to answer. Like who will benefit and who will lose? In the American system is built on Meta, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, four giants. The Europeans are attempting to build their own giant ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
because they got 500 million people, and they're going, well, why are we so we can't keep doing this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the American system extracts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do not have that kind of the American system can build because it has a mass of 300 million people. Okay, so 1% of that is significant enough. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
1% of that is 3 million. So what you're dealing with are systems which require scale. Okay.
No, I'm listening to you.
Mm-hmm. So I think really, rather than asking the question of who benefits, the downstream question, we need to look at what are the dynamics of these kinds of systems. We have to look at the dynamics of the system first, right? We need to understand. We need to understand the system as the system, not as what we want from the system.
Can you tell us why that is important? Because I have this tendency to always look for, how do you put it, cui bono, who benefits? And then the second step is rank. Is there a ranked order of beneficiaries?
But examining the system, it answers all of those questions. But it answers those questions with architecture, right? If the other way of doing it is that you want to answer the question, so you often overlook architecture, right? But the architecture tells you who will benefit.
Alex, I have to fight this urge I always have to reconcile tension and reconcile divergences. And would you say that it's a mark of naivety to believe or to have at any point believed that the internet could have been and still holds the promise of integrating humanity beyond? Okay.
Read the paper.
All right. All
Right.
right.
Don't waste my time.
First read the paper, then
The
so
architecture. That
so
you'll see why you see the architecture answers your question. Here's another one, right?
hold on. The history of ARPA leading up to the ARPANET. Yes, ARPANET.
Right. It's a good. That was because in terms of checking, looking for text at the time that I was doing this, I did it a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Books were not really that available. Oh, this is Dead Sea. Okay, so yeah, yes, Rand is everywhere.
Rand is everywhere. Rand really is everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's
Rand is not
always,
running away.
but come again?
Rand is not running away.
The thing is, it's everywhere, and wherever it is, wherever it rears its head, within 5 years, you're going to have an escalation.
Yeah.
And you, in your most recent article on Substack, which I strongly recommend, you, or was that in a post on Substack? But you point out that there's some indication that escalation has become inevitable for the West in the theater around Hormuz.
Okay. So in terms of the world system, I am making I'm saying that okay, so what are the look at the architecture.
Mm-hmm.
80% of what comes out of Hormuz, right? Out of that high optionality. Okay, sorry, not high optionality. Um, the thing about the oil of Hormuz is that it's concentrated and it's flexible.
Mm-hmm.
So you can contract or expand supply very easily in that region, right? Within a fortnight, you can contract and expand supply. No other region has that flexibility. Okay, so that what you end up with is I call it a ballast. It's a center from which, if the oil price is going up too high, you can increase flow.
Mm-hmm.
If it's too low, you can cut down on it. And there's no other node that can do it like that. 80% of it comes out through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay? And no, sorry. 25% of the world's flow comes out to the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes. Sorry.
80% of it goes through the Strait of Malacca into the East China Sea. Right? This is a coupled system. Okay? And what comes out of the East China Sea is the world's most dense manufacture, a particular technical manufacture center,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the way that the system works is that the oil and the petroleum goes to that region, to East China Sea. Out of that come the 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 manufactured goods to be absorbed by Europe and America as a the densest consumer nodes of this on the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now
Mm-hmm.
there's some counterflows as the oil or the petroleum goes to the east. The money comes to the to the the region around the Strait of Hormuz, and then it it travels to the densest financial instrument zone, which again is the zone that has the consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes there for investment, especially in government bonds, right, or treasury bonds.
Yes.
All right. So these instruments that give a fixed return on what you put. Okay. Now for the Chinese or for the East China Sea, sorry, not the Chinese, East China Sea, because we're talking to the Koreans. They're paying them. That goes there. But when they have a surplus, their surplus goes into United States and EU.
Because it's such an absorbent market.
But also they need to ensure that that market is maintained at a level that still allows it to absorb,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then the whole circulatory system collapses. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So so everybody is invested in that circulatory system working. The critical part of that coupled system, when I talk about the coupled system, I'm talking about Hormuz, East China Sea, right? Which has it has no optionality like one. Hormuz out.
Yes.
Malacca one, right? Um, no other routes can handle the volume necessary with the friction, with the lack of friction necessary. So what happens here is that that is the critical and foundational node.
Mm-hmm.
So the United States, the deal that they have for what we call the petrodollar,
Yes.
is that it ensures the internal security, because these guys didn't really have external threats, right? The security arrangement is they guarantee the internal security of those governments
So,
in exchange that they price their oil and their energy in US dollar. That's one.
mm-hmm.
And two, that they put their money, their surpluses, in the
Mm-hmm.
American market. Okay? So that is the gravitational current,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So what I am saying is that you challenge the entire American architecture is built upon on top of that foundational current.
No, I don't like to interrupt because sometimes finishing a thought and then
Okay.
um
No, it's based on that. So
mhm,
the United States literally at present, if they walk away, then they forfeit that to Iran.
mhm, mhm.
They forfeit the control of that to Iran. If they
Unbelievable.
stay, they have the chance of recovering the control of that from Iran.
Mhm,
My reading is that they don't have a choice.
mhm.
Right? One is a clear lose. One is a is a loss with the possibility of a win. And it's so foundational to their circulatory system that they cannot. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yes.
Now this is really that emerges from a very a real application of the world system framework,
Mm.
which I've been developing, which as I had been ill and so on, and then I decided I couldn't, that I needed to lighten my load, and then I decided to talk about about the framework I use. Okay, so I think out of that came that kind of development.
I mean, this has been a very, very fascinating conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope the audience forgives me that it's not exactly something that I'm very familiar with. So I didn't have very technical questions, but as we proceed in this conversation, I'm beginning to see the parallels between our classical geological geostrategic analysis perspective and how some of the tools that we use to speak of the patterns and the nodes in the world system's perspective, that some of these perspectives allow us to speak also of the infrastructure of the internet in similar ways that reveal power differentials, that reveal discontinuities, disruptions, divergences in the system, that undo the idea for whom it still existed of a unitized, encompassing internet globally, minus China. Because now from this conversation, it's become clear at the very least that if we factor in what has been called the digital divide, where um, mostly the African continent is left out of the world's internet cable connectivity. They speak of frog leaped Africa because everybody now has a cell phone and through that gets access. But that's not the same as speaking of the physical architectural prerequisites.
I think when we talk about these kinds of things in Africa, we have to talk about the thickness of infrastructure. And I'm introducing that term because if you're ever talking to a policymaker or something, just ask them, how thick is the infrastructure, right? And at the thickness of that infrastructure, what can it sustain? And just look at them square, right? Because this is the issue. This is the issue of the next 20 years is the thickening of infrastructure. If you're not playing on that, you're not a strategic player. You are a declining strategic player. That's it. Thickness of infrastructure, and Western financialized thinking is struggling with that in its own lands, much less elsewhere. Right, and this is the matter: thickness of infrastructure, and where infrastructure is thick, it is the upgrading of infrastructure. Okay, this is you could forget all of the forget all of the political arguments, etc. Just cut to the bone. That's the matter.
I have here in front of me the architectural components of the internet as we know it. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for starters, for those who want to put some substance behind the word thickness. It's composed of submarine cables, of cloud infrastructure, domain name systems, backbone routing and IXPs, and user access and user censorship. Those are the kinds of
So in order for that now, you need to have, what do you have to have? You have to have electricity. Electricity requires an energy source. Right? Then you have to have technical know-how to maintain. Then you have to have, so technical know-how to maintain is both of a physical engineering type and software. Okay? So that requires educational institutions that are capable of that, and business or institutional ecosystems that are capable of producing the thickness that is necessary for the maintenance and development of that. Okay? So you're talking about, you have to start thinking from not only primary, but you have to start thinking about the nature of the hospitals. What is support? Diet, so that people have sufficient development to handle that. Right? So this is when I start to talk about thickness of infrastructure. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? So if somebody comes to you and they're talking to you about building a road, you're an African country and somebody's talking to you about building a road from here to port, and you look at them and say, well, after the road, what?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to pay for the road? How am I going to
Mm-hmm.
pay to maintain the road? Right? If you can't be answering those questions, then because there's a new kid on the block. So if the Americans and the Europeans want to continue to compete, they need to up their game. Yeah.
And in order not to up the game, sabotage and blockades are
But
being.
that's not going to work. That is not it's a strategy that might work for another decade, but it's not going to work. That's not a strategy, right? Because they need to also that we have to. I am in Britain, okay. We have to we have to upgrade our infrastructure, and instead of upgrading our infrastructure, we're talking about immigrants. We'll throw the immigrants out there.
Mm-hmm.
Throw us out, right? Fuck. I mean, I'm third generation British. I'm still an immigrant. Get it, right? Um, um, and my identity reflects that. My parents took me back to Guyana, right? Because I'm in a place that which I could be here for 10 generations. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
I'm still actually really what's it? I'm tolerated,
Mm.
right?
We
Yeah,
talked about that. We spoke of
yeah,
that in the past, yes.
yeah,
Toleration and the intolerant roots of Western toleration.
yeah. And so what I'm saying here is that the discourse in the West, and they just shot three Muslims in San Diego, okay, and they're
And
just
whenever there's a Muslim victim, whenever there's a Muslim victim, the Muslim victim will not be mentioned. And this was in Australia, the beach shooting, where I think the person who saved the beach goers,
was a Muslim, yeah.
and that information came out later. It didn't come out immediately.
Yes, and but this is my point. My point is that we when I talk about necropolitics,
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that we are essentially necropolitical, and instead of dealing with the issues that we have to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
right, both in the United States and Europe, we're we are basically laying the foundations for civil war.
Well, who's we?
I'm saying we because I am part of that society, right? If you're in a
Mm-hmm.
society and you are still identifying yourself, what I'm saying is that I am now part of a pathological society. We were a society with a pathology.
Mm.
Okay. And and we have to be honest about that so that so that those are the challenges we have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
If not, if not, you don't get you don't get to decide what the outcome is, right? The action has a consequence.
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
And what's always interesting is the way that speaking like that gets people angry. Yeah,
Yes, that is definitely the case. I've tried to, as we were speaking,
eleven
tried to
thirty.
write. Pardon me. Yes, I've
Mm-hmm.
tried to write down something like a punchline to remember, but I'm not sure if it does the theme justice today. The internet is a generative ordering network or ordering system marked by competing, splintering interests. Am I on the way?
I think I think we have to look at the internet pretty much as you look at ceilings.
The internet as sea lanes.
Yeah.
So we
So
so do you care to remind us where the core choke points are?
Well, first of all, those internet cables go through the choke points. That's where they go. First of all, okay, and they're laid along the sea lanes,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole thing is that they are um, they're infrastructure of flow. They're
Mm-hmm.
infrastructures that are meant to take flows,
Mm-hmm.
and so in the same way that when we're looking at the world, we look at the terrain, we look at the geology, right? We have to look at the limitations of the technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're looking at flow. It's about
Mm-hmm.
flow,
Of data.
right? It's a flow of data, but what is the data flowing for,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that is an engineering. So often what we're looking at is technology of distance engineering, right?
Mm.
So we have that's why we talk about latency. Latency is basically a bundle, not a substitute for distance. Okay,
Yes.
so I think that what we're looking at, in the same way that in the world system, roads and sea lanes provide flow. That is what it's providing. It's providing flow. So what happens on the other side? So the same things that you see on the right is um, goods, right? The sale of goods.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
allows sale of goods or commodities. It allows it's an infrastructure for people to meet. You know, I'm in the UK. You're in Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking, and people are here. They're in the United States. Some people are in India, etc. Okay, so I think we really have to. That is the granularity of the information of the data or the
Yes.
granularity of the investigation that is important, right? That's what I'm going to say about because I'm teaching a grammar. I'm saying it's a method,
Mm-hmm.
right? Get granular. Don't get ideological. Get granular. Just if you get an idea, you just kick it away and just get granular. Look at the information. Look at what's going on.
I see some questions. Should I try to touch on them before we move
Please,
on?
yes.
Yusuf Ahmed, hello, dear Yusuf, writes, how then are pathologies dealt with at the structural level, structural pathologies?
Well, the reality is that you have to look at um at what is happening and what is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't do what is necessary, then it will have a consequence. And often, what we're talking about are the choosing consequences
Mm-hmm.
that destroy the reproduction of the system, because the
Mm-hmm.
system has to be able to reproduce.
Yes.
So we are making choices that constrain the ability of the system to reproduce itself.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of addressing that, what we are doing is we're further constraining the system's ability to reproduce itself,
Yes.
right? By turning the system against itself. So you turning it into self-destruct, right? Now, that is why I did psychopolitics, right? And that's where you are at that point, you have to come in with the psychopolitics to understand, well, what the hell is going on? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've been working on an article on Vladivostok.
Mm. A cold place,
Yeah.
a seminal place.
Uh, yeah. And Vladivostok becomes Russian in 1860. The old story.
Mm.
But
Mm.
when they took it, they were looking for a naval fortress in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
And once they got it, they designed it as a naval fortress. But what also emerged was a cosmopolitan trading center.
Mm-hmm.
So as a cosmopolitan trading center becomes um, more active, the fortress imagination becomes more anxious. right?
Mhm.
Because what is a fortress? A fortress needs to is a it is concerned about security. When you have a cosmopolitan open center, people are coming, etc. Right? Then your anxiety is about about Fortress Vladivostok, and trade in Vladivostok becomes the kind of oscillatory attraction pools of the system.
Yes, I understand.
Right? That's psychopolitical. Okay. So I'm answering Yusuf's question. So I'm saying at that point you really have to look at it, and you have to also see that in terms of the way that Vladivostok is defined, that that tension is part of what Vladivostok is, right? It hasn't gone anywhere since 1860, and it doesn't look as if that's going anywhere now, right? That is how Vladivostok is constituted, right? And hopefully I can get that article finished by maybe by next week. I don't
Looking forward to reading it.
know.
But
But
there is an article online right now that is also very much worth reading by you, and that is hold
oh,
on just a second. Hold on, I have to find the exact title where you're looking at.
I'm trying. I never remember what I done
No, but it's. I mean,
at my age. I'm going to blame it at my age because I'm only 35. Of course, it's on this the mapping the petro dollar circulation order.
the circulation out of the petrodollar, exactly. And I think that
Yeah.
is something worth reading. I was surprised by how rich it was because I was expecting no, I can't say that I was expecting that from you, but I was expecting things I already recognized.
Okay.
And as usual, I was
Well, it's
surprised.
built on what it's built on what we've been discussing all through these past 3 years.
That's
Just
true.
extends it
That's very true. But
and systemizes it.
it
Okay,
systemizes it.
yeah, and I in the dystopia on Mars corpus, I've been putting it on Notebook LM,
Mm.
and asked I asked for I did a prompt on this question on the article, and it was so brilliant. I shared it. The podcast. It was so. I mean, there were some things that I didn't like. Well, yes, yeah. Or somebody's is me and you are going to be age fellows soon to be 35 in a few months. Oh, that's good. Yes, then we will be twins.
Wondrous things happening in this community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand is mentioned by the Muslim paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
Ayn Rand. Do you?
Now he has an interesting Substack. You should check it out. Right? And
Oh, well.
I'm assuming it's a he.
Let me see.
Please apologize. My apologies if not.
So I've just followed, and I remember that the Rand Corporation stood for Research and Development, a very unsuspecting name, and I don't remember it being linked to Ayn Rand.
No, no. I think he's just
Oh
being
yeah,
having
believe
fun.
me. I was quite surprised when I found out that Rand just stands for Research and Development. It makes you smile, and it makes you very suspicious of the world.
I don't know. I always find it you
They
cannot be. This is the world. You cannot be naive.
they do research and development, all right, into
Yeah,
killing
but
people
no,
all
but
over
no,
the world.
it's research and development into American security.
Uh, Supremacy more.
Well, supremacy is their security,
That's it.
right? And not being able to be honest about that and expecting it to behave differently as dealing with it as some kind of aberration
Mm.
is a category error. I mean, one of okay, hold on. There's some books I recommend. Ah, hold on. I'm just gonna get a book, and then I should call it quits after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of set of books which are at the bottom of a pile that I have. So I have to pull them out. Okay.
Chatter
So,
X writes, Rockefeller Chevron purchased Noble Oil in October 2022. The date of this is absolutely crucial, October 2022, to understand the events that started in Gaza exactly a year later.
So my videos were dealing with that, right? If you go on Instagram and you look for them, you'll see them. Okay,
Yes.
so in the late 1800s, early 20th century, with print capitalism came the political memoirs. Okay, and I think it's very important that you know them. So here's one that I recommend.
My Political Life, Volume 1, England Before the Storm, 1896 to 1914. The Honorable Amory. What is CH for? LS Amory CH.
This was a colonel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so he goes from there, right? Look.
My Political Life, War and Peace, 1914 to 29. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Political Life, The Unforgiving Years, 29 to 40.
Okay.
The Unforgiving Years.
So this guy was central to the British establishment.
29 to 40.
Okay, and so the point here is that we must understand power. Right. This is a very useful way of understanding power. There's another book called The Power Broker by Caro, right? American writer Caro. Excellent.
How's it
If you look
spelled?
at Caro is, I think, Carro, I think. But the power broker, and he's looking at the life of somebody called Robert Moses, who built American parks and a lot of the highway infrastructure.
1974.
Yeah.
Published in 1974.
Yeah. Absolute. That's a genius of a book. It's huge. Yeah. If I would recommend you listen to the audiobook. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. It's a big book.
1,300 pages.
Yes.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me this 20 years ago?
And you cannot, and you can't stop reading it. Because, okay. The point is that in addition to understanding the infrastructure of the system, which and the way that flows happen, which is what the world system is about, and psychopolitics is about the way that people behave, and imagine the political, and so what must return within the political, like a symptom, like I was just talking about Vladivostok. Okay, you have to really build a grasp of the way that power operates. These texts like these would teach you about the way that power operates.
Yes.
Okay. Because when I started doing this, ultimately I want to produce a generation of particularly power literate people. Right. That is my objective.
It's fascinating. Fascinating. Because it's working, but it's also disheartening.
I don't know why you're disheartened.
Because I shared my bias with some of the audience last week, And I do have a bias that I can't shut off. It is a bias that is dedicated to the increase of the standard of living and the quality of life. And for some reason, I cannot undo that little element of
Well,
my
what
programming.
I've just been talking about the thickness of infrastructure. And what do you think I'm thinking about?
Yes, but the essence of power disregards life in the necropolitical
That
dispensation.
is why you have to be literate, and that is why you sometimes you have to you design systems that
Mm.
constrain political actors so that they have to deal with those things. That's what you do.
Well,
If you approach it with that kind of very naive idealism, then power walks all over you.
it's the naivety of the civil servant. It is the naivety of the civil servant, of the classical profile of a civil servant, to work in order to improve, meliorate the conditions of the people who have put you there in that position that was designed to improve the collective welfare. And
And doesn't.
power, pardon me,
And often doesn't.
and cannot, when power politics decide we have other priorities.
So then that is why you must be power literate,
Mm.
right? Because what you have to do is you design it so that power cannot escape a grasp of the consequences. And if you're designing the system, then those that the, those which do not thicken what helps people, then the building the abandonment of that, you design the system so it punishes them.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well,
okay. So what you're seeing with the Chinese system is very ruthless thickening of infrastructure within China. I'm talking about within China, right? And if you're not doing that, they've designed the system so it ruthlessly punishes you for not doing that,
mm,
right?
mm. Power literacy is why China is outfoxing America, is what Billy Bumble says.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with the United States and Europe is that they could get away with murder because they had no competition, right?
And exploitation and extortion,
Well,
called development aid.
so they could get away with murder,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now there's competition, so they can't get away with the same murder,
So
right?
now they have, now from making and killing to killing.
Well, they were killing all of them anyway,
Exact that part.
right? So the point here is that um, it's not only power literacy; it is a type of short sightedness that is precisely why our our infrastructure is now brittle.
Mm.
Right? It's a short sightedness. Built it, had infrastructure is now brittle. And and so that there are upstream implications to that kind of thinking. There are things that kind of thinking that it presupposes. And really it is in those things that you really have to make those changes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. It's 11:50. I mean, I started about 18 minutes past, so I think
We've gone on quite a bit.
too long.
Mm.
All right.
Mm.
So I hope that I've answered the questions. The series is done, and I hope that I hope that this session was not that it delivered what you expected.
No, it definitely delivered more, and I think for people like myself who took the internet for granted, I had some complaints about it because it wasn't being used to integrate humanity. That was my complaint
Mm-hmm.
for many years until I realized there's no point complaining about this because the people who run it don't have that in mind.
And again, when you start to look at something,
Mm-hmm.
go and
Mm-hmm.
read it. Read. You don't have to read its Genesis. Go read its origin.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But you'll find all of the psychological dynamics locked into that.
Yes. I'm very grateful for this conversation. I'll go back to it. I've taken copious notes over here. Um, and at the core of what we talked about today is that the internet should be seen panoramically as a splinternet. And at the core of the splintering of the internet, there are tensions, there are
Mm-hmm.
choke points, there is an isomorphism between sea lanes and the internet infrastructure, the architecture of it. And I've learned and I've taken away from this conversation that understanding the distribution and the access points of who owns what in the architecture of the internet will allow me to better understand um, the role of data flows in geopolitics and geostrategy.
Precisely. Precisely.
And for that, I'm very grateful. I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I did. And
Yeah.
please remember to restack parts of what you find useful and informative so others in your networks might catch on to what Alex is excavating for the public in this almost restless duty that you've been fulfilling for the past 3 years. And I'm just happy that I can be um, the quisitor, not inquisitor, but the quisitor. So thank you very much, Alex, for taking the time today again and for
Yeah.
opening our perspective to this data dimension of what is going on in the world.
And guys, thanks for the thanks. And please, go through the material and share it, etc. Because I still haven't got my head around how to take out. Apparently, you can take out parts of the video or share part of the video. I haven't got my head around all of that.
So,
But yeah, please. I mean, I, 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 I really dedicated myself to dealing with this because I want to ensure that after that we produce a very power literate cadre of a generation, with material that allows you to read that. And really, I was shocked. I just took the corpus and I dropped it into Notebook LM,
mm,
and I was really blown at its ability to um to question and reproduce the thinking,
mm-hmm,
which means that usually means that I've been quite disciplined about the definitions and the ideas
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
decent,
mm,
and in describing the dynamics of how it works. So that's been interesting. But they are over. I think there must be. We're almost at about 300
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
pieces of articles and podcasts.
mm, mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah. All right. Okay,
Thank
Billy
you very
Bumbo.
much, Yusuf,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
thank you, Billy Bumbo, and see you
Yeah.
next week.
And Robert Romano, Muslim Paradigm. Billy Bumbo. Billy Bumbo has a fascinating Substack on mental health and his own experiences,
Mm-hmm.
with his love affair with his psychiatrist.
All right, I know what to read later on today.
Yes, it's most interesting. I feel sorry for the psychiatrist.
I'll go and have a look.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I feel both sorry for him and I also think he gets blasted just desserts. That I
Mm.
wish that could have been more present
Hmm.
in our system because we would have better healthcare. So
Makes
thank you,
sense.
thank you for championing that, Billy Bumble. And okay, guys,
Thank you
pleasure.
very
All.
much.
Yeah.
Bye bye.